What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about if Scream 7 could be a part 1 and a part 2. I've seen this theory floating around, not necessarily maybe even a theory, more like just a suggestion like, hey, would this be something that a Scream franchise would take a stab at, considering making fun, basically, of other movies doing the same thing? Now, I go back and forth with it, because on one side of things, you'd be making fun of the industry or just kind of be like a look inside and say, hey, we know how these other movies operate. We know that this tends to be something that they do really, and to be honest, is to get more money, right? Instead of just having that finale, whether it be a trilogy being the finale or whether it's the 7th movie, the 3rd movie, 4th movie, whatever, how do we make more money? That's all we really care about. Well, we can split it up into 2 films. So I think from a meta perspective, it makes so much sense, and really this would be the first time that you could try it. You go back to Scream 3 back in 2000, not really so much of a thing back then, right? Then you had 4, and 4 was going to be 4, 5, 6. I would have been really interested to see if it actually happened, if they would have maybe played around with it. It didn't seem like that was going to happen. For this one, to be honest with you, there's never been the most succinct roadmap, let's say, going forward. And by that, I mean, yes, they've kept continuity, and I think there is a somewhat of a roadmap of where they want to go with these characters. But we've also heard a lot of lines such as, we'll do these movies as long as they want us to make it. And you probably would take a step back and say, okay, from Paramount's perspective, they probably will have this franchise go on as long or as many times back-to-back-to-back years as they possibly can, as long as the franchise makes money. If you can make these movies for 30 to 40 million, and you can make like 120 plus million at the box office, and you can do that almost yearly, why wouldn't you just keep going, right? Is it the best decision for the franchise, for the quality versus quantity, right? Is that the best decision? Probably not. And again, that's why I'm kind of on both sides of it, where it's like, I think it would be almost hilarious because you'd be making fun of it, but of course you would actually be doing it, and you'd be doing it really for those reasons. So it'd kind of be an odd look at just the entire situation. But if we want to be fair, well, Scream 3 taking a stab at Hollywood, of all those kind of parties and all the stuff that happens in Hollywood, wouldn't be the first time. And also, you look at just the titles of Scream 5 and 6. Now, the idea of what those movies are, they also kind of went more into it, right? They really played themselves. As much as people have, back and forth opinions on 5, for what it was trying to do and what it kind of knows being meta, I think it did it pretty flawlessly of bringing everybody back. You got to kill a legacy character to make it important, right? It's to start off a new trilogy. You need new final girls, new final characters, right? But you got to bring the old people in. It tells you that point blank, and then it also does it. And I think it's very smart in that regard. Even if you look at the titles, Scream, instead of Scream 5, is literally a little jab at movies that do it. And then Scream 6 is like, well, we're doing it purposely because we know continuity-wise that Scream 2022 is Scream 5, but we're almost making fun of it. So we're making the title just Scream, right? So all of these examples already, and yes, I don't think any of them are necessarily as big as if you did a part 1 and part 2, but they already have shown some signs of, and they've historically, even with Wes Craven, have shown some signs of, let's look at the industry, let's talk about the industry, and let's do it in our movies. And not only that, but we will flat out mention things, and we'll maybe even do some of the things to point it out in our films. Now, Radio Silence obviously being different than Wes Craven, you look at 5 and 6 and you say, yeah, it's pretty clear that they lean into that, let's say, pretty hard. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Again, even from the more business side of things, I think as long as you can keep this cast together, as long as they want to do it, and maybe arguably more important, if Radio Silence still wants to do it, I think the idea from a business perspective is maybe to keep this thing going as long as you can. I like the idea of a nice clean trilogy. You make your 3 films, you make, Scream 7, and you call it there. That's the end of that. Then if you want to do 8, 9, 10, I'm a guy of numbers. I'm a guy of trilogy, so I like 3, then you stop, then you do another 3. I don't like the idea of 4 because that's not a trilogy, right? And then maybe you stop after the 4th one. I think you got to go all in and do it in groups of 3s. But at the same time, we've seen it, Harry Potter, the Hunger Games, Twilight, over and over. And these are big, and now Scream isn't that. but the idea of, well, let's do a part 1 and a part 2. Business wise, it's really, to be honest, at least in my opinion, you can think whatever you want, it's to make money. It's to extend it even longer. They probably could do it. Now, I guess granted, like I think of Harry Potter, something I'm very into. How do you make Deathly Hallows part 1 and 2 and how they did in the films? How could you have done that in one film? Would it have been difficult? Oh, absolutely. I think Scream would almost be it would probably be a worse example, right? Because it's taking something that's not written. You're not adapting it from anything and saying, well, we could just do it all in one film. But I mean, to give this the respect it deserves, right? Those are always kind of the excuses, right? We've always done these books one film at a time, and one film is one book. But for the last one, let's really give it our all, and let's split it in half. Scream, you don't have that benefit of the doubt because it's not written anywhere, right? They're just kind of coming up with it. There's no reason to split it in half. Yet again, what would stop them? And then from the excitement standpoint, as long as you keep people excited, as long as these movies are different enough from each other, as long as you don't, I'd say, have reoccurring issues. Like I'd say a lot of the problems in 5 and in 6, they're not necessarily the same. I actually think 6 has problems that 5 didn't. 5 has problems that 6 didn't. I do think they kind of learn from each other. So as long as that keeps going, and again, I'd argue the biggest thing would then be the cast, right? Everybody is very family-oriented right now, and I love it. I mean, I watched so many interviews with the cast of Scream, and they genuinely feel like they're real family with each other. But at the same time, it is Hollywood. It is one of the worst places on planet Earth. Maybe you get sick of each other. Maybe you just eventually don't want to do it, right? Do we want to get to a point where Courtney Cox, or, Neve Campbell was because of the pay. Do you want to get to a point where Courtney Cox says, there's kind of too many of them, so I think I'm going to sit the next couple out because they just keep happening. I don't really want to do it. See, I think bowing out for that reason is a lot worse than like a Neve Campbell, because Neve is like, hey, if the script is good, which is pretty much just saying like, reinvent it enough, pay me enough, and I'll come. I don't want Jenna Ortega saying, all right, look, I'm pretty big now. I don't really need this. And also, I don't really want to be in 30 of these, and I don't want to do it yearly. So I think I'm kind of done. And considering you only had me for 3 movies, whatever it may be, my contract was only 3 movies, so I'm going to peace out. You don't want to run into those issues. So all of that aside, if you can, maneuver your way through all that, I think the idea of a 7 part 1 and a 7 part 2 makes sense. I like the idea a lot. The meta-ness is probably the main aspect for why I like it a lot. If I'm putting money down, I'm going to say not going to happen. I think they'll do a Scream 7, and then we'll see what happens after that. Again, the way that they're talking certainly sounds like they could have an extremely quick turnaround from, say, 7 to, like, the next trilogy. I don't think it would be like a Halloween thing where it ends, and then the rights are kind of just, like, thrown in the air, and everybody's trying to grab for it, and they don't know when the next one would be or if there even will be, right? I get the sense, at least right now, Scream 7's box office could dictate a lot of this. I get the sense right now that, at best, it's not going to be a slow turnaround from 7 to then whatever comes after. What would be even quicker is if it's 7 part 1, 7 part 2. You do those also in back-to-back years. So you'd actually have 4 Scream movies in 4 years. And then you decide if you're going to do more, if you're going to take a break, hand it off to another team, right? All that kind of jazz. But I definitely want to hear from you all in the comments. Let me know, do you think a 7 part 1 and 2 would work for them? Do you think it doesn't make any sense? Let me know. Make sure you're all subscribed, bell icon turned on. If you want to check out any of my other YouTube channels or our Discord server, the links are all in the description below. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next one.